The gacha game Genshin Impact is one of the biggest games of today, with the title having already eclipsed the 3.6 billion revenue mark only on its second anniversary. Genshin has revolutionized the very concept of gacha games, and has pushed it into the mainstream. You can say that it really left an impact. But how did we get here? To answer that question, we need to go back all the way to the start. The concept of gacha games came from Japanese gachapon, which are basically like vending machines, but instead of whatever Japanese vending machines dispense, is that a freaking rifle? What the heck, are we sure these are not from America? But yeah, instead of that, they give out capsule toys. But unlike those normal machines, when it comes to gachapon, you cannot choose what you get. You have to insert your pocket change, crank the knob, and hope to the gacha gods that you either get the toy you like or the super deluxe extra rare prize that can probably be a gun. Gachapon started in the 1960s, when the grandfather of gachapons, Ryuzo Shigeta, set up a machine that dispensed products with a plastic ball container. After a decade, Bandai Namco revolutionized the idea by trademarking it and making it centered around collectibles related to anime, manga, and games. This concept was a very massive hit in Japan, which is why gachapons are still around today, even outside Japan. Fast forward to 2010, and now we enter a world with computers, games, Facebook, and Justin Bieber. During this time, a social network named Gree was acting as a mobile-first Facebook for the Japanese market. Like Facebook, the platform also had games, and among those games is the game that will start off the gambling addiction of otakus worldwide, Dragon Collection. The game had a simple premise. You collect chibi monsters and use them to fight your enemies. To make your monster stronger though, you need to get artifacts. And you get those by getting chests, though you can also get those chests naturally within the story if you want to speed up the process or get the great chance of getting the best artifacts. Then I guess it's time to ask mommy for that credit card, Buster. And yeah, you can also get those monsters from rolling. Eventually, Dragon Collection became Konami's biggest money getter. There's really something about spending thousands of money on PNGs, I guess. And the big corporations, they picked up on that. They weren't gonna let Konami get millions from this gaming model by themselves. So they followed suit. As more gacha games like Brave Frontier and Puzzle and Dragons came out, it was established what made a gacha game. First, the gacha must be a key element of the game, and the roles must be paid by in-game currency. Though you can also use real-life currency to acquire those aforementioned virtual coins, the game must also need to provide virtual rewards, which are most of the time in the form of anime waifus and husbandos. Because the rewards should also be collectible but have no real money trading value. So yeah, your C6 Raiden Shogun isn't making you millions of dollars like how a Mint 10 Charizard can. I'm sorry. And this is because those elements are only essential and have value in-game. With more gacha games coming out, the gameplay of gacha diversified, and more variations to the game mechanics have made the concept evolve even further. First is consecutive gacha, and that is where purchasing gacha in bulk increases your probability when it comes to getting a certain item. Nowadays, Genshin Impact's pity system has really put out this mechanic to the mainstream, but more about that game later. Rerolling is also a famous gacha mechanic. So famous in fact that sometimes even if there are no established reroll features in the game, they still find a way to do it. The things people would do for their anime waifus and husbandos, I guess. Among these different mechanics though, is Complete Gacha, a gacha variation that was banned in 2012. At the same time we were all panicking because we thought the world was ending due to Psy's Gangnam Style reaching 1 billion views on YouTube. And yeah, that's a real story by the way, search it up, that year was insane. The Japanese were at a similar but less idiotic panic over complete gacha games. That type of gacha was a monetization model popular in Japanese mobile phone games until 2012. Players roll in an attempt to complete a set of common items from a particular loot pool in order to unlock a rare item. The first few items in a set can be rapidly acquired, but as the number of missing items decreases, it becomes increasingly unlikely that redeeming a loot box will complete the set. This caught the eyes of the right-leaning Japanese newspaper Yomiuri Shimbun. For them, this model was a gambling simulator disguised as a cutesy game. This controversy got so big that it led to Japan's Consumer Affairs Bureau to step in and rule that gacha prizes needed to be treated with the same rules that apply to baseball cards and other collectibles. More importantly, all of a sudden, Japan's rising mobile game industry was under so much scrutiny from the public eye. Mobile games in general had a mainstream reputation of being bad. Even so, gacha games were never actually illegal, but gacha developers started self-regulating with the hopes to avoid the negative gazes of the government and the public. They even made a committee called the Japan Social Games Association that specifically worked to purge non-compliant business practices from the industry. But it didn't last, disbanding in 2015. Even when the public viewed gacha games in a negative light, that still didn't stop gacha developers from making games. The year is 2014. And the video game development studio Cygames were at the brink of releasing a gacha game that will one day be known as one of the OGs that will forever leave an impact to gacha games and its community. Granblue Fantasy, a game that has a music composer and art director duo that previously collaborated on works like Final Fantasy, isn't playing around. GBF had everything. It had beautiful art, great music, and gameplay that was simple yet enjoyable. Everything about the game allowed it to be successful and have the longevity that it has. Even today, GBF is still a staple in a lot of gacha fans' big three, which is only understandable once you find out that the game has amassed over billions of yen. It wasn't only peaches and cream for the game though, because while it was successful, it was probably a tad bit too successful for the time it was released. Due to fans being obsessed with trying to get the character they liked, some of them resorted to spending a lot of money on repeated random acquisitions. This resulted in the Japan Online Game Association imposing stricter regulations on the agency. Basically, players streamed themselves spending thousands of yen, rolling for a new character that had a rate-up, and that was the tipping point for the association. They had to step in and put a stop to all this madness. Not gonna lie though, fellow gacha players out there know that rate-up is a lie. This entire conundrum, along with claims that GBF was actually lying about the drop rate of the character, led to Cygames issuing an apology and in-game compensation to those affected. The most important thing resulting from this fiasco is the implementation of the pity system in GBF. After spending 90,000 in game crystals, the player can now choose and immediately acquire their desired character, an element of consecutive gacha that will be used by big gacha games in the future. Even with the controversy, GBF still prospered. Not only is it still relevant to this day, with new games coming out, like Granblue Fantasy Versus and Granblue Fantasy Relink. It even had an anime come out in the spring of 2017, animated by A1 Studios. Not only is Granblue recognized as a game that belongs on the Mount Rushmore of gacha games, but it is also seen as one of the best JRPGs in the market. A year after the release of GBF, another game worthy of a Mount Rushmore spot made its debut, Fate Grand Order. FGO was based on Type Moon's already established Fate franchise, which stemmed from a visual novel from 2004, Fate Stay Night. Fate was an already established IP that had maybe at the time thousands of fans. But more importantly, there was already expansive world building done before the gacha game even got greenlit. The world of Fate was tailor-made for gacha. The very concept of having a throne of heroes, giving masters anime-fied versions of historical figures, makes it so hard to believe that Fate was actually not a gacha game when it first came out. It was actually an eroge. Not only can players roll from a cast of already beloved anime characters from all the other Fate stuff that came out, and trust me, there's a lot, but they can also roll for cute anime boys and girls that had names that they were already familiar with. Like, who wouldn't want to roll for furry Thomas Edison? The game got so big that the Wall Street Journal said that it was partly responsible for the soaring operating profit of Sony, contributing a whopping average of $2.5 million per day. Everything was in place for Fate Grand Order to sit on top of the Gacha game mountain, and sit there they did for a long time. FGO boosted the popularity of the Fate franchise and made it a staple in the lives of a lot of people. Pair this with the spin-off games and anime projects that bloomed from this gacha game, and you can see its total influence in not just the gacha game community, but anime/otaku culture in general. From the years 2016 to 2019, though Fate Grand Order was still the king of gacha, a lot of notable gacha games also came out during these years, like Azur Lane, a game set in an alternate timeline of World War II, where players can use female moe anthropomorphic characters based on warships from the war's major participants. Well, even if that premise is weird, I guess it still worked when it comes to getting the attention of gacha consumers. That paired with the very enjoyable side-scrolling shoot-em-up gameplay the game possesses, and you have $1 million franchise in your hands. Bang Dream Girls Band Party also released around this time, a game that eventually turned into one of the most successful rhythm game gachas of all time, joining classics like Love Live School Idol Festival and setting the stage for future hits like Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage. In 2019, Arknights released and gave the world a tower defense gacha game that had a lot of cute obtainable characters. This is also a common theme when it comes to gacha. Even though the key concept of gacha is present, the gameplay of these games all offer different experiences that allow different types of gamers to indulge themselves in. One game that did exactly that was Honkai Impact. Honkai was released in 2016 by the game development studio MiHoYo. To say the least, this game was different. It was 3D, it had good graphics, especially for a free mobile game, and it had gameplay that incorporated different genres like hack and slash, social sims, bullet hell, platforming, shoot 'em up, and dungeon crawling, while taking inspiration from already renowned games like DMC and Bayonetta. Honkai Impact was something that, quite frankly, the gacha game community has never seen before. It was different, it was special, and it was MiHoYo's penultimate step before changing the gacha game landscape forever. Everybody knows about 2020. The pandemic struck and made society halt and restructure how everyone viewed what normal was. Being stuck at home meant that for most, they had nothing to do. They needed something to pass the time while distracting them from the unstable world that surrounded them beyond the comfort of their homes. And what better escape is there than the world of Teyvat? Genshin Impact was a gacha game that was unimaginable. It had all the aspects of what made people so attached with gacha games, but at the same time, adding the concept of open world gameplay into the mix. Open world games are mostly expensive, and rightly so, since those kinds of games are very hard to make. But Genshin made it possible by betting on its in-game purchases to make a profit. What resulted from that risk is a game that has left a permanent impact on not only the gacha games, but on mainstream culture in general. Genshin Impact gave the people locked up at their homes a world to explore, while they couldn't even get out of their backyard without risking getting endangered by an invisible threat. This is all while having a good story, beautiful music, and a wide cast of characters that you can relate and attach yourself to. Genshin took away FGO from the top spot and didn't look back. It became a worldwide phenomenon. Gacha games, all of a sudden, weren't just a niche for otakus and anime enthusiasts alone anymore. Genshin, and in turn, the concept of gacha games, became mainstream, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. Genshin's main story has only reached its halfway point, so it's safe to assume that the game isn't going away. Even outside Genshin, MiHoYo is still succeeding, with Honkai Star Rail releasing in 2023 and already amassing over millions of players worldwide. There are also games outside of HoYoverse that have found success, like Blue Archive and Nikke. There's also Uma Musume, an anime horse girl racing gacha game that even outcharts Genshin from time to time. And you can't forget about the classics like FGO that are still relevant in the gacha game industry up to this day. Gacha games are an important part of anime/otaku culture, and it will continue to thrive in the near future. So save your money up, gamers. We are getting that 5-star Arlecchino. If she's playable, but MiHoYo, please make her playable, please.